ghost stories. Do all sorts of ghostly things. Talk local legends. And some ghost hunting. Stories we hope to live to tell. And you have to listen. Who's Ghost Stories? Who's Ghost Stories? We talk Tinker's Hollow to the beast of Delaware Road. Stories we hope to live to tell. And you have to listen. Who's Ghost Stories? Who's Ghost Stories?
Welcome, folks, to another exciting episode of Who's Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Medium and Reiki Master, Andrew Huzar from Huzar Reiki and Readings. We've got cryptid expert, Professor Alex Wheaton, and our everyday normal guy, Tyler. If I seem excited this episode, it is because I am. My dad got me a book of Pennsylvania ghost stories, which each one is written, with the exception of a couple, each one is written like an essay. So it gives you the story, it gives you the history, and then it has, most of them, have citations. So you can go read further. And so I'm using it for a lot of our episodes this year, and I'm finding a lot of cool stories from it. But today's topic came directly from there, and when I read this story, it has stuck with me to the point where I know it detail for detail. And I am excited to bring this to Alex and Tyler because I don't think either of them have heard this before. I never had. And it's not on the level of a surprise episode, but this story is just fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and, before I dive in, if you still like our shirts, go buy them for yourself on Etsy. What are you waiting for? You can get the Protection, the Cryptid Life. You can get the one made by our boy Jordan, where it is based off the Lincoln Park golf course. You can get Megan's shirt, all sorts of shirts. Go, take care of yourself. And also, since we're inching closer, we are going to have a big 50th episode coming up soon. It is our 50th episode ever. It's amazing that we've gotten to 50.
Sorry. Just attacked my face.
What was that?
I don't know. What are you doing?
It's like getting punched by a cat.
Why did you do that? Don't I love you? Sorry. What in
That's
the
taking the episode.
Oh
I'm
my!
leaving it out.
Please don't. Oh my God! She's never done that before, ever. Harry, what are you doing? Oh my God!
She just tried to knock you the fuck out.
I know. I don't know why. I fed her this morning. Look at this. Does this look like? Does this look like the face of a cat that would do that?
No.
I know. What did I do? Ay.
You must have been listening to me too intently, and she just
bitch smacked me. Whew,
That's
well,
awesome.
it's more great for B-roll.
I'm gonna jump back in where I kind of was, but yeah, big 50th episode coming up. I'm going to give out some more details on the social medias, but we're going to have some guests. We're going to a cool place again. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, go to Etsy, buy the merch, go to Paranormality Magazine, sign up with code Who's Ghost, and make sure you vote for us in the podcast again. Why wouldn't you? You love us. We love you. It's mutual. We love Harry the cat. But
One does.
without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive into this bad boy. Now, we've traveled to many cemeteries, and each one has felt different. Sure, there are similarities since they all have the same purpose, but each one has a unique feel. Each cemetery also has its own stories and legends. Some of them are based in fact, while others seem like they're just around to spook you. The jury is out on this story that comes to us from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're talking about Pittsburgh's Mold Man, a legend that takes place back in the late 70s. At that time, the cemeteries in the area were selling mausoleums faster than they could build them. They would build one mausoleum to show off and then pre-sell as many as they possibly could. This created a problem, though, because the owners were often dying before the mausoleums could be built. The genius salesman came up with a solution. They would build temporary concrete crypts to hold the bodies until the mausoleum was finished. Once the mausoleum was finished, the bodies would be exhumed from the temporary crypt and placed in the mausoleum. This might sound like an easy solution, but the gravediggers quickly came to hate this part of their job. You see, they had to confirm that each body was the right person named on the crypt and mausoleum. Once removed, the gravediggers would need to open the coffin. They would then bring in the original mortician who would ID the body and take note of any clothes and valuables in the coffin to make sure nothing had been stolen. It was said that many of the bodies were in gross states. Some resembled nothing more than jello, while others were gaunt skeletons, their skin looking like tanned leather. Most of the bodies, while gross, remained unremarkable. That is, except for one.
The supervisor popped open the coffin and was shocked at the sight before him. He was expecting another decayed corpse, but this one was in near perfect condition. He looked like he died that day, except for one odd detail. His entire body had been covered in a furry grayish-green fungus. Upon further inspection, the fungus had actually eaten away all of his skin, but somehow held onto the shape of his face. The fungus gave him a fleece-like green skin, which shocked the superintendent and mortician as well. They were able to verify he was the correct man and moved him to the new mausoleum. The legend says this occurred on a Saturday. On the following Monday, the morning maintenance crew arrived at the cemetery when they saw a strange sight. The mausoleum's door was wide open. When they approached the mausoleum, they were shocked to see something smeared on the glass door, and on one of the crypts was open, and inside there was the empty coffin. They quickly called the police, but soon found the body themselves. While passing one of the temporary concrete crypts, they noticed the door was open, and inside was the green furry corpse, the one nicknamed the Mold Man. All of his belongings were still on him, so the workers filed a vandalism report and placed the boy back in the mausoleum. While cleaning the glass, they noticed the smeared stuff on the door was the same green fur-like fungus on the Mold Man's body. Huh.
Things were quiet for the next 2 weeks when the same thing happened. The new mausoleum was open, and the Mold Man was found in the temporary crypt. This time, there was some more evidence. It had recently rained, so the ground was soft. They could see one trail of footprints leading from the mausoleum to the old crypt. On top of that, the green fungus was smeared on the lid and sides of the coffin as well as the outside. They placed the Mold Man back in his new mausoleum again, but this time the funeral director called a priest. The priest administered last rites to the Mold Man and then blessed the new mausoleum. Since then, the Mold Man has stayed put in his tomb. There are some slight variations to this legend, but most of them are the same. Green furry corpse is moved to a new home before walking back to his old one. Was the Mold Man a restless spirit, or did he just want to return to his final resting spot in the temporary crypt? Not too many specific details are known, which makes sense. After all, how many cemeteries would you want to be known as home to the restless Mold Man?
I love this wackadoo tale. Um,
Huh.
so I'll tell you the quick variations here. So um, it differs between being like a single family mausoleum and then like a huge mausoleum that like holds like 75 people. Um, but in both of them, mausoleums opened, he's not there. Um, in the other variation, involving the single family one, and this is my favorite variation. Um, the second time it happened, the entire casket was missing. And when they looked at the footprints, they could see footprints and then like this long trudge next to them. And when they got to the temporary crypt, the mold man was in his coffin in the temporary crypt. So he actually dragged his entire coffin over to the old
Huh.
crypt. But this is just such a fun, creepy story to me because, on like one hand, like you moved him from his final resting place. Like he died, he called that temporary crypt his home. And as we've seen in so many cemeteries and so many almshouses, once you start moving bodies, they don't get happy. They get opposite. So I could definitely see his spirit wanting to go back to where it was. But like this is one of the few stories we hear where it's not just the ghost. He takes his whole freaking furry body and moves just back into the old one.
That's wild.
Yeah, and like the fact like that part of the story itself is awesome and creepy. Like the ghost just returning back to
It's
his old
creepy.
crypt. But like you
It's
add in
creepy.
like this weird fungus that has engulfed his body.
Except his face.
Yeah, like it's like it ate all the skin and just like clung to his bones. So like it's just him, but he's just furry now. He's like out of a Marvel movie. Like
That's what I was
I
thinking. I was like, it sounds kind of like a weird Marvel villain.
yeah, and like the texture made me think of like Flocked. Like he was an old Flocked toy. Like you could like pet. Like I just it's amazing to me. I love it. I don't know where it came from. You can't find anything about what cemetery this might have been. But like I
Kind
don't
of
know.
weird since the 70s, too.
Yeah. So
But it's
Pop,
like, yeah.
let's say you work at a cemetery. You come in,
Okay.
you see a mausoleum looks like it's been busted into.
Okay.
Green Fur Man is gone. And then you find him in his old crypt. What is your mind racing to first? What's going on in your head?
I need a new job. I'm sure I don't get paid enough to deal with walking zombie mold people.
Definitely not. And like the same thing here. Like that's probably my first thought too. Like I was originally like thinking, I'm like, this sounds like some sort of prank, but that's like an elaborate
Right.
prank. Cool.
And it's gross.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to do that? Or, like, honestly, my first thought would probably be like, I don't think I left you there. I'm pretty sure I didn't leave you there.
Yeah.
You know, aren't you supposed to be down the way a little bit there, friend? That's so, yeah.
And like so like on the police report, I couldn't find the police report, but like in the longer like the full version, like they talked about how like they noted like everything was still on him. Like he had all of his belongings and clothes and everything, so like nothing was touched and like I think that just
Yeah.
makes it better. Like he just got out of his coffin and just walked back to the old place and was like, no, I'm staying here.
No, this is your room. No, it's not. My room's over there.
So it's kind of like same thing to you. Like what would like your first thoughts be? Or like what are your first thoughts on hearing this?
Why couldn't it have been 2 decades earlier?
In the 50s?
Do you know why?
Why?
George Romero.
Ah,
One of the original points of the Living Dead series that he was working on was it was alien spores. Like, legitimately. So if it had happened 20 years earlier, it could have been the inspiration for Night of the Living Dead because, again, Romero was from Pittsburgh. Like, he was just outside of Pittsburgh. That's where he did all the early films and where his studio and whatnot is still to this day, actually. The memorabilia and stuff for everything is in the town right outside Pittsburgh, literally the first little town. And that's actually where the cemetery from the very first Night of the Living Dead was filmed. So, like, as soon as we're talking about the Pittsburgh Mold Man, I'm thinking, this feels like a Romero thing. It really does.
Now that you say it, you're 100% right.
Yeah. So,
So because you're a college professor and you have like 18 degrees, we've asked you many questions before, and I'm going to pitch one to you now.
okay.
When I hear the description of his skin, I think moss.
Yeah. That.
If someone says fungus, though, like there would have to be like a mushroom or something, right? What do you think's on his skin?
Lichen is a fungus.
Oh, so okay, and
That changes things a bit. Yeah.
that could. All right, I didn't know.
Lichen is a form of fungus.
So that
Fungus is, traditionally, when people say fungus, we think of the traditional toadstool, mushroom things like that people have grown up as the societal acceptance. But fungus is just the designation that they are spores and how they grow. So, yeah, I would imagine there's probably a form of fungus that is more spongy and soft, I would think.
I was trying to pull up a picture of living lichen, and I think I spelled it wrong because
Lican, yeah. Chen or an or something like that. Lichen.
all right, it's just not doing anything. But I mean,
Because it turns black as it dies.
right, and that's all I've seen. But like I've touched it and felt it, and like I could see that when it's alive being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I've got a picture here. Let me see if I can share my screen here, Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
This will be.
Yeah, it's a combination of algae and fungus is what lichen is. So.
Oh, there it comes up. Let's see if it loads here. Yeah, so this is living lichen. So like if I saw living lichen, I would say that looks like a fur-like substance. That
Oh yeah. I don't know.
I would still
I'm
think.
with you. I think it's a little mossy.
Oh, look at this though. This one of the lichen mixed in with the moss when it pulls up here. Yeah. This one. Yeah, I could buy that being lichen if I'm looking, especially if I don't really know.
Which one? The one on the top left?
Let's see. Should be opening up now here on the right. But yeah, it's kind of like lichen mixed in with moss here now.
Like that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like I could definitely buy that, but like honestly, like if I'm opening up a
Dog pelt lichen. Yeah, lichen just.
all right,
They're weird. They are a mix between. Because they're. They're complex organisms, and all that means is that they have a deeper. We are complex creatures. Yeah. So we have different systems and everything. Lichen are this weird, complex creature it creates a symbiotic relationship between fungi, so it's spores, and algae, which uses chlorophyll and everything. Because fungus don't need the sun. They don't need chlorophyll. They need damp, wet, cold, dark. But algae needs wet, light, and so it's a very weird combination, and that's why most people see lichen at cemeteries. Like, it grows on the headstones.
yeah.
So, like, yeah.
All right, that's it. So, and inside the casket in the mausoleum would be kind of like a
Damp, wet. Yeah, if it's
So,
not secured or it was wet or something, it would
all right.
definitely.
So here's a theory time. And you can tell me if this theory lines up here. And this is just on his his body. We're not even getting into the ghost here yet. So they open the casket up, and they see him, and he's covered in lichen.
Yeah.
And then they move him, so obviously like, he doesn't get better. But at some point before they open him the second time, would there have to be like a lichen spore or something in the casket, or like
Lichen takes a while to spread, which is why I'm intrigued by the time. Most anything takes a while to. There's probably a spore already. Um, yeah,
all right, that was kind of curious. But, like what also is an interesting detail to me here, and it raised a lot of questions that I can't get answers to. The original mortician had to ID the body.
mm-hmm.
Now, the only thing it said is people were dying before the mausoleum was finished. If it's a singular family mausoleum, like, okay, it shouldn't be that hard to get the original mortician. He should obviously still be working. Giant multi-person mausoleum, you could be talking like 2 or 3 morticians,
Mm-hmm.
and they could be old or dead themselves. Like, that's also an interesting point. Like, to me, is just
My
who's
question.
IDing these bodies?
My question that really is the hinge point for all this is how long had he been dead?
Right.
Because that's not stated.
That plays into legend a little bit there. Is
Like the closest we get is that he looked like he had just died that day, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's no he had been dead for multiple years. It's just his obviously you can infer that obviously his family bought a mausoleum and that he died before it was built, but we don't know when.
It could have been a week. It could have been a month. It could have been a year. It could have been 5 years.
Yeah.
The question is, when did he die, and when was he put into this crypt? Because if it was years, then yeah, the lichen growing is very possible.
Yeah.
Right conditions, it would make sense. If it was a week, that's a whole lot more to that question.
Yeah, and like especially like I could see definitely as you're saying there, like if he's put into this temporary stone crypt for a couple years, definitely something's probably gonna grow on him. Cause like it doesn't sound like the cemeteries we've been in that had like receiving vaults. Like it sounds like they were just building like these little concrete walls to like throw people in as they went.
Mm-hmm.
So I could definitely see that.
Humid, still conditions with clean air.
Okay, so yeah. All right, so Tyler, I liked your last answer, so I'm gonna throw this one at you too.
okay.
He hasn't moved yet, but you open the coffin to examine him, and you see he is covered in that like green fur. What are you even thinking is going on?
Bad Marvel's villain. I wondering when Captain America's going to show up to fight this guy. I don't know. I mean, I guess my first thought would be like, not enough formaldehyde. I don't know. You know, like I mean, what I would imagine it'd be kind of like getting a slice of bread and seeing some mold on it, like just kind of toss it away. But you kind of can't do that in this situation, obviously. But yeah, I think my first reaction was to be like, how long have you been here? What happened? And who forgot about you?
Yeah, I agree, and like to me, like opening that casket itself, like right there, you've already got like a fantastic legend. Like we were looking at this guy, and he was furry. He was green furry. Like he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
Like you've already got a kickoff right there. Alex, how about you? What's going through your mind if you are living any part of this?
My mind is, I'm not paid enough for this.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
all right.
bayou lichen known as old man beater lichen.
That looks like her.
Yep.
So I think there's a lot to love about this story here, and as somebody that wants all the paranormal to be true, I'll say if this really is truthful, then his ghost would have had to have been so mad at being moved that it literally just either possessed his body and got him out of there, or like picked his body up and just moved it back.
Is that possible?
It is only because like we have evidence of poltergeists throwing people around, but the amount of anger that would have to be in his ghost to do that would be insane. And I'm not saying like it's out of the realm of possibility. I don't know. I haven't seen for if he was getting that mad. I don't think his only act would be moving his body back. Is kind of what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
the people that moved him would be like in danger. Like
Really?
the next day to move him back would be in danger because
They moved him.
yeah. And since like the only act is that he just moved his body, it's kind of like where it's like we're like I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's false. I'm also not gonna say it's 100% truthful because I don't want Green Mold Man appearing in my bedroom,
Right.
to curse me.
Yeah.
So here's kind of a question that we haven't really asked for any other legends. So, like I said, this is the basic one. The other one is he dragged his coffin back with him the second time. And in my head, that's kind of like I'm trying to, like, he's wanting to move back in, basically. Which version do you like better? Do you like just him getting up and walking? Do you like the idea of him actually taking his whole coffin back with him?
Yeah.
I like him carrying his coffin with him, just simply from the ridiculousness of it. I don't know.
How about you, Tyler?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just bizarre. So if he's got to get real mad to take his body with him, does that mean he has to be like extra mad to take the casket too? Like I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. Like
I would have to think so because I don't know.
those are heavy. No,
I don't. He would have to because like I don't know if there's there's proof or evidence or like tales of a ghost moving something that big and heavy. Like the most I've seen, like household objects get thrown around and moved around. People get pushed and thrown around. I don't know what it would take for the body plus the coffin.
one body too. Caskets are heavy. I think they look heavy.
They are heavy.
Yeah, that's
Right,
I've been a pallbearer a couple times. They're heavy as shit.
yeah. So
Well,
that's
of
like
course,
you
those
bring
ones.
up a good point there. That's a very
Right.
good point. Like, which legend are you going with? It if a ghost is moving its body back, it's probably just the body.
Right. That guy really wanted to sleep in his own bed.
So like,
Yeah.
I want Jordan to make a design for us of this,
Right.
because like I love the idea of this green furry zombie dragging his casket across the cemetery back to his old crypt.
Here's another thing. Where do we draw the line between ghost and zombie? Because that sounds pretty zombie-ish.
It does, and I think what lets you blur that line between the two is that nobody witnessed it, So like we don't know if he walked or if like the spectral body like picked him up and like moved him. I think is kind of what makes it a little
Or,
like you're just
yeah. Or a first shift gravedigger was like, you know what? We're going to play a prank on Joe, the overnight guy. Like,
Botrytis.
botrytis.
Botrytis is a particular type of mold that forms like this on dead tissue in particular.
Oh.
I was like, there's got to be more to this.
Let's see if I can pull this up here, Tyler.
There's nothing online about this guy. There's
No,
like
there
two.
isn't.
One's another podcast episode, and the other one's can I remove mold myself in Pittsburgh, PA, and then the mold men of Pittsburgh.
Let me tell you about that other podcast episode. It is
Oh,
just a guy reading directly from the book I got this from.
that's lame.
So it's not even like a different
Informative.
take or anything. Like it is just verbatim. Because I found that and I listened to it hoping it would be a different account.
Right.
This is botrytis that Alex just found here, a fungus that grows on living things.
But he's dead.
Yeah. So like, this fungus
It
could get
feeds
on
off of dead tissue.
Yeah.
So I want, yeah.
So
Oh, I've seen that before.
I love all the ideas of this here. So I'm gonna ask you another question that we don't really ask about. We kind of talked about like last episode. I'm gonna go Alex first to give you a second to think about it, Tyler.
Please do.
What are you adding to this to improve it in any way? I think this is already like an A+ story.
It is.
But like, what would
Really?
you throw in there as like some personal flair?
For me, personal flair? Ooh. I would go as far as to take a page out of Romero's book. I would honestly, to add flair, that there's one mold man, but the fungus, the mold that's on him, is still alive to this day and travels slowly through the ground and tries to get other
bodies.
I think the hive mind zombie thing.
What about you, Tyler? What are you adding to it to improve it, or like some personal flair you like?
Oh, got it. Easy. This one's easy. That one's kind of tough. This one, guy, we need a name.
Yeah.
Then we need a whole backstory on that guy. Coincidentally enough, he was a mushroom monger when he was alive.
Mm.
Mold fungus.
You
Um,
you're really genius, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But keep going.
and a way he died.
Yeah,
I think those would be my flair. Like we got whatever name you want to give the guy, and then little backstory how he died, and then yeah.
I like it because those are so simple. But you are right; like it would completely take it to like another level and like the easy thing to be is like you could just go find any old mausoleum that just kind of like fit the story. Like maybe it has some lichen on the outside or some moss or something, and like you can just take the name off the front and be like, yeah, it was old Duncan Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Old Duncan, the old mushroom monger who dealt in fungus his whole life until the fungus got him.
Yeah, and I mean, once records get old enough, like you're not gonna find out how like someone died like all those
But
years.
again, it's the 70s. It's not like this was, the 1870s.
So like, yeah, you could easily like come
A little
up with
more clarity.
Yeah, I think that would be an awesome idea. Like because then you could go visit the Mold Man's crypt. You could go
That's I
find
didn't think of that. Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree. Those even like a cemetery, like if you had those, obviously you could add in the cemetery name. Then, I think is what I would add to it is instead of it happening once and then a second time 2 weeks, I'm making it happen like every night for 2 weeks.
Every night, yeah. I like that.
And like you could even start it out like escalating. Like the first night, like you're kind of walking by the mausoleum and like you see like the crypt is like slightly open and like there's stuff smudged on it. And then the second night, he's out. Like you could escalate it up throughout the 2 weeks to the point then that he's dragging his coffin back to his old crypt. I think that'd be really cool to add. Like you said, those two. I like the hive mind thing. I think all of those would just that would make it even better. But yeah, Like I said, I think it's an A+ story because like I think this is a perfect story. Like if you're sitting at a fire with your buddies and drinking some beer, this is a fantastic story to tell them. Like it's not high on the scary end. Like there's nothing in this that
No.
scares me. If it was a hive mind thing, that would be a little scary.
Yeah.
But like, there's no part that makes me fear. Like this is just a fun
It's
story to
cool.
tell.
Yeah, it's like
Creepy. Well, creepy.
Yeah, a little creepy because like yeah, he rose from the dead, and guess what? He and like where he was now, and you get some of that human error in there of like, we got greedy, we're just selling stuff left and right, but we can't build this. We're just gonna move the bodies around. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And like I think like all that just makes it such a fun story to tell. Like if we were having a fire tonight, like this is a story I would tell. Like, hey, did you guys ever hear of the Pittsburgh Mold Man? And everyone, of course, would be like, no. And like this is like the
Absolutely.
perfect story. So, Tyler, we're gonna go back to the rating scale here. How would you rank or rate this story? You don't even have to compare it to any old ones. Like, what are you thinking on this one?
I'm with you. I just think it's a cool story. There's nothing to really be like, scared of, but it's creepy and it's cool. So it's a solid 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll throw it over to you.
11 out of 10.
Yeah,
A little higher.
yeah.
I love this. This is under cryptid area almost. It is just good old fashioned weird sighting type thing, and I love that.
And like I think what also makes it cool is like this is a story that like could be told by anyone of any age. Like
Yeah.
I had fun like sharing it with you guys, and we're grown men. But like this is easily one that kids could share together and get like a kick out of it or get scared of it.
Absolutely.
Like some of the ones we've talked about, like as an adult, like it kind of falls off the wheels, or like it's like as a kid, like uber terrifying. Like this one's just fun for everybody. I think.
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Mold
I could
Man.
tell this to my now 10-year-old nephew, and he's not going to get nightmares.
No.
Like he's going to think that's kind of weird and cool. Like
Yeah.
it is.
It's like a story you'd find on like Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Yes, that was exactly what I was thinking.
Like the Pittsburgh Mold Man rose from his grave, spread his mold, and walked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question. Ooh. As he leaves, like he like spreads his mold wherever he goes, which I think would play in like your hive
That's
mind.
why I said that
But
one.
like
Yeah.
where like he spreads it, like do you think like that would happen with mold, or do you think like it would be more attached
It
to him?
happens with mold.
Yeah.
Mold spreads easy.
Yeah.
That's why there's a business for mold removal.
Pittsburgh Mold Men.
Yes, they are a company. But no, mold is the way mold works as a plant or as a organism is fungus. It uses spores, and spores are airborne. So legitimately, it's easy to spread. If you have mold on your finger and you rub it against the wall, that mold is going to grow on the wall where you just rubbed your finger. And then when the next thing comes in contact with it, it's going to leap onto that and attach to something else. It's why if you have a situation of mold growth in a building, you want to take care of it because it will continue to spread. And yeah, it's an easy spreader.
It makes it even cooler. Just like he's just leaving his mold behind her. Which again, like if you find a crypt that has a lot of mold or fungus or lichen on it, right there, that's what
Crack
he
it
was touching.
open.
Especially if you had like a row of like just tombstones that were just covered in moss and lichen, and like at the end was just one mausoleum that just had a little bit. That's just where he
Oh, it's
dragged his
perfect.
hand.
Yeah. If you want some science with all this,
Throw it.
so
That's what the story needs.
I know, right? So there is a budding field of necrobiome investigation and studies into particular plants and whatnot that grow and thrive off of dead bodies, because decay and dead bodies is natural world. Like we have that problem. We also see, if you ever watch it's gross to watch, but a time lapse of like a body decomposing, you'll see as the different microscopic organic material eats away at it. I found a study legitimately from 2019 that was looking at fungal growth in mammalian corpses from 2019. So like it's a new field. It's not super in depth yet, but the idea is that we're trying to understand more of how that happens. So 1970s, we don't know this information. It's very possible that it was just a really strong example of one of this necromold that does an excellent job, and we just didn't know about it. And it was like, oh, that's weird. And didn't say anything about it.
All right, so there is obviously no proof to back up what I am going to say.
There's no proof for any of this story, unfortunately.
But in my opinion now, starting at this moment, that necro-fungal field was born because a kid heard this story and they wanted to get to the bottom of it.
I'm game.
This is also what created The Last of Us.
Oh, clearly. I was surprised that there was not a single Last of Us reference in this entire thing.
Oh my god, I love it. Alex, any final thoughts here on the Pittsburgh Mold Man?
I want to know what cemetery. Like that.
Yeah.
My final thoughts on this is that this is cool for us. Pittsburgh is a very short trip. For Tyler, it's a little bit longer of a trip. But it's one of those I'd gladly take a day trip to go down to Pittsburgh and just visit the cemeteries. And
oh, believe me, I would too. If I could find even like an idea of what people thought the cemetery was, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Right?
Like I will go find the Mold Man.
The problem, there's like 4 or 5 big cemeteries that have been around for a while, and that's like, okay, yeah. But no, it's a fun story. That's my final thoughts on this. Is that this was a fun story and I enjoyed it.
Tyler, how about you?
No, I think again that everything was kind of said. That I had on my mind. It's a good, fun, old-fashioned folklore story. And it kind of adds to the mystery that there's no other information anywhere besides an ad for Mold Man in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, like you can't find anything on it at all, and it's like, where did this story come from? Like there are so many questions that you never gonna, and I think all of that mystery just adds to it. Like you said, like
absolutely,
you just have the story itself. Like,
absolutely,
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm going to tell this story to everybody I encounter. If you watch this episode, share it with everybody you know. Let's make the Mold Man a bigger deal than he is. He deserves it. He was rooted up from the spot he loved to be moved into another one, and they had to do last rites a second time.
Right?
they had to do extra last rites to get
wanted
him
to
to
make sure it was really dead.
But yeah, I love it. Definitely like and follow, subscribe, leave reviews, share us around, follow all the socials. But I think that does it for this episode. I think the Paranormal Cowboys are done here.
Yeah, especially with that one.
Hell yeah.
In the light.